Okay, so I got my template set up. It's giving me my file type based off my output template, which is PNGs, 8-bit to PNGs. It's giving me 2K maps. That's great. It's going to export it here. So I'm going to go ahead and just export these textures. And I want to just have a look to see, did it work properly? If I see some red stuff here, or if I see some yellow stuff here, that could be fine. You just have to read what it's telling you. If I do have that, it's probably saying I don't have any emissive channels, so it didn't give me a map for that. Right? That's a common error that's going to come up, but just make sure it all makes sense. If I come to my maps now, I'm going to just open up my ORM map that I created in Photoshop so I can take a look and see that, yes, in my red channel, this is where it gave me my ambient occlusion. You can see this is where the laces are on top of the leather part. This is my roughness map, right? I can see, yeah, that looks like a roughness map. And then this is my metallic map, which, yep, no metal on that football. If I had some metallic paint, it would probably show. It would show up here if I had done something like that, right? So when I'm looking at a map like this and it looks multicolored and green and possibly some purples and stuff like that, I don't want to consider this map as if it has color on it, because it doesn't. These are just 3 maps all stacked together, and I'm never going to read them that way. I'm going to read each one of them individually. So, okay, so with our textures exported, I want to go over to Unreal Engine, and I want to go ahead and import this. So I'm going to come to my textures folder, and I'm just going to drag and drop these assets into my textures directory. A couple of things are going to happen when I do that. It's going to detect that one of these was probably a normal map. And I say probably because all it's doing is saying, hey, that kind of looks purple. Normal maps are purple. That's probably a normal map. So if you are making a bunch of assets, like a bunch of flowers, and those flowers are also purple, you have to go in and check to see if it detected your base color, purplish base color map as a normal map. And if it did, we want to say, no, we need to change that back. So there are a few things here that I want to do when I first import my textures, and I need to do this right away because I don't want this to kind of just pass me by and forget about it. So my base color map, I have compression settings on each one of these assets. And this is where I can set the correct color profile for each type of map that I'm using. So my compression type for a base color map is going to be blockchain 103, depending on whether or not it's going to be default BC1, BC3 with alpha. And if I twirl down, or if I go down to my texture, I should see that sRGB has a check sign next to this. What does this mean? Can anyone tell me what this button here, this sRGB with a checkbox, does? So an sRGB color space is saying that it knows that this image is going to be displayed on a monitor, and in order for our monitor to be displaying the images in a way that is going to look as correct as possible to how our human eyes see things, it's going to raise some values up. So it's going to take some of the dark values of this color image. It's going to raise it up just a little bit. The midtones, it's going to kind of raise those values, and then the highlights, it's going to kind of make some adjustments there, so that when I'm looking at it, fed through this voltage monitor, it's going to appear correct. If I actually look at this image, the way it was built, without that gamma encoding correction on it, it's going to appear darker. And we can see this in Maya. If you export out an EXR or you export out a raw image, everything kind of looks a little bit darker, right? You probably had that, you saved it out a file, and it looks darker. And then you apply the sRGB gamma correction, the color profiled one, and it looks the way that it looked in your Maya viewport. Well, that's what's going on here. We have a sRGB gamma encoding that's bumping up all the colors where it needs to be on this color map. So this would be the equivalent of toggling sRGB on in Maya. So that's correct. Don't need to do anything here. I'm going to jump over to my normal map. I'm going to see that the compression type is normal. So this is where you would want to change it if it accidentally detected your color map or your ORM map or whatever as a normal map. This is where you would change it back to probably default. And then we can see here, sRGB is disabled. This is the equivalent of setting your normal map to raw or linear scene rec in Maya. And this is saying, hey, this normal map, it has nothing to do with color. I know there's color on it, but this normal map, it's just basically saying what angle should light bounce off of this. The normal map is just a vector. It's giving me X, Y, Z information that says bounce the light in this XYZ angle. Bounce the light here at a different angle. So a normal map is just being used for its data. If it applied a gamma correction and made all these pixels brighter, well, then you're like changing the angle, which doesn't make any sense, right? Because you are now, those values aren't what they're supposed to be. You're changing the data value of it by making it brighter. So by turning off sRGB, we're saying, no, this is just a linear image. Don't apply any adjustment to the how bright it is on any part of this object. Just say, if this was, a value that says bounce the light off at a 30-degree angle, leave it at 30. Don't increase it up to 32 degrees or whatever. So it's removing any gamma correction because it was built without that needed. So that's correct. So I'm going to hit save here. And then I have this ORM map. And this is the same concept, right? I'm not looking at this as if it has color. I'm looking at this as data, right? I'm looking at this, say this roughness channel, and I'm saying, at this pixel right here, make this pixel, 20% rough right here. So it has a 20% gray pixel here. That means 20% rough. So if I don't remove the gamma encoding on it, it's going to make this pixel a little bit brighter. So instead of it being 20% rough, which is what I want, it's going to then say, no, that's actually 28% rough now because I've increased it because I thought I was supposed to. So toggling off sRGB is going to say, nope, this is a linear image. If I say this is a 20% pixel, display 20% roughness. So it's removing any kind of gamma correction. So we would do this, as you know, on any black and white image. But really, we should do this on any image where we're just looking at it in terms of the data. Like this is a value. This is a roughness value. This is a mask that's saying that this is a leaf and this is not a leaf. This is 20% thick. This is 40% thick. This is 80% thick. Black and white map, right? It's just using it for its value rather than any color. So ORM maps, I want to make sure immediately I come in and disable sRGB here. Now, if you're following any kind of tutorials out there, you may kind of read some documentation on this. You may see people also take your compression settings and say, I'm just going to set this to masks, no sRGB. That's going to do the same thing. But you can either work that way by always choosing masks, and that's going to disable that for you, or just leave it where it is, and then, or just go in and disable sRGB manually. But whichever way you do, again, just do it the same across your entire project. If you switch up using masks versus just unchecking it, you're going to mess up your project and how materials are used. Okay, so I am going to just leave this at default, uncheck this. Okay, so now with my texture profiles all set, these textures are ready to be used. As soon as you import your textures in, go through this process because you need to do this, or else all your assets are going to look a bit darker and much shinier than they are. So if you run into an asset and it looks darker and more shiny, like really glossy, come in here and just check to see, oh, I forgot to uncheck sRGB on my black and white maps or my ORM maps, and then just do a check. Okay, so what I want you to do for the next like 5 minutes here, 5-10 minutes, is take the other Substance files, export out those textures, and I want you to import them into Unreal Engine, making sure that you are setting the correct color profiles on each one of these texture assets. So there's 2 more assets there. There's a can, and then there's a plant. The plant has 2 texture sets, so make sure you export out both those texture sets.